In Argentina, it isn't uncommon to hitchhike. They call it autostop and also viajar a dedo, which literally means to travel by finger. Juan Pablo Villarino knows all about it. Autostop is his way of life.
Mi primer viaje en autostop fue en febrero de 1998 a Villa Gesell. La ciudad está a unos 110 kilómetros al norte de Mar del Plata, donde yo vivía. Empecé a calcular la distancia total que iba a tener que caminar si nadie paraba.
Eventually, someone did stop. They took him 30 kilometers, and then another family took him the rest of the way.
Era una bienvenida a un mundo nuevo.
Once he reached his destination, he spent the night on the beach and woke up to see a man sitting close to him, apparently meditating. They got to chatting, and Juan Pablo decided to tell him about his dream of quitting school and dedicating his life to traveling.
El hombre me dijo palabras que todavía recuerdo. Es tan sencillo como que puedes hacerlo.
Which means it's as simple as just doing it. That advice would kick off epic journeys for Juan Pablo and eventually lead him to his most challenging hitchhike route yet.
Quería hacer autostop en Afganistán.
Bienvenidos and welcome to the Duolingo Spanish podcast. I'm Martina Castro. Every episode, we bring you fascinating, true stories to help you improve your Spanish listening and gain new perspectives on the world. The storyteller will be using intermediate Spanish, and I'll be chiming in for context in English. If you miss something, you can always skip back and listen again. And we also offer full transcripts at podcast.duolingo.com. Today's story comes from Argentina. It's called Autostop in Afghanistan, or Hitchhiking in Afghanistan, and it's told by Juan Pablo Villarino. Please note that you'll be hearing Juan Pablo speak in an Argentine accent. They pronounce their double L's and Y's with a sh sound, as in ayer or calle, instead of ayer or calle.
Está ocurriendo en estos momentos algo que será la noticia en el mundo entero en las próximas horas.
Juan Pablo was at home in Mar del Plata, a coastal town in Argentina, on the morning of September 11th, 2001.
En la ciudad de Nueva York, ahí en el extremo de Manhattan.
He saw the news of what happened, like most people around the world, on TV.
Cuando vi a las Torres Gemelas en Nueva York caerse, me quedé sin palabras, en shock.
Most of us know what happened next.
On September the 11th,
The U.S. invaded Afghanistan to go after al-Qaeda, the terrorist group behind the September 11th attacks.
we condemn the Taliban regime.
The war on terror officially began, and it seemed to Juan Pablo like people were quick to divide the world into allies and enemies.
Sentí que era el momento de usar mis dos pasiones, viajar a dedo y escribir historias de viaje, para ofrecer otro punto de vista. Mi misión sería comprobar que la bondad y la hospitalidad son universales. Mi destino final sería Afganistán.
Argentina was in the midst of an economic crisis, so it was going to be tough for Juan Pablo to save enough money to pay for a flight to Afghanistan. But in 2002, when Juan Pablo was working at a hotel, he met an Irish family that invited him to stay with them back in Ireland.
Decidí irme a Irlanda. Era mi oportunidad para ganar más dinero, hacer un gran viaje y convertirme en escritor de viajes.
Juan Pablo spent another year saving up money, and then in 2003, he quit his studies and used up all of his savings on a ticket to Ireland.
Llegué a Irlanda con solo 10 euros en mi bolsillo.
At first, Juan Pablo worked as a receptionist in a hotel, and then as a machine operator at a cheese factory.
El tiempo que tenía libre lo pasaba investigando. Leía guías de viaje, y me iba a la biblioteca pública a buscar información sobre los países que pensaba visitar. Hice, con cuidado, mi plan de viaje para Afganistán.
It took Juan Pablo 2 years to save up enough money to leave Ireland. The first few places he visited, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, they felt familiar and similar to places he had visited before. But everything changed when he got to Istanbul.
Nunca había estado en un país musulmán
Musulman means Muslim.
y todo era nuevo para mí. Las comidas sobre la alfombra, los bazares, la ropa de hombres y mujeres.
Maybe it would be much harder than he had imagined to hitchhike in a place like Turkey.
Pero fue más fácil de lo que pensaba.
His usual hitchhiking tricks ended up working just the same there as everywhere else.
Iba a la salida de los pueblos o ciudades y elegía un sitio donde los vehículos paraban. Las intersecciones eran lugares ideales porque los vehículos iban más lento.
There's one hitchhiking rule in particular that Juan Pablo followed everywhere he went.
La regla universal en cualquier lugar era sonreír y hacer contacto visual. Los vehículos se paran con la sonrisa, no con el dedo.
From Turkey, he crossed into Syria and then into Iraq and Iran. Everywhere, he felt very welcomed. In Iran, nobody would let Juan Pablo set up his tent. Instead, they'd invite him to stay in their homes.
Me hacían un lugar en sus casas y conversaban conmigo durante horas, curiosos de la cultura de mi país.
They would chat into the night, relying on Juan Pablo's basic Farsi.
Cuando viajo, siempre hago una lista de 150 palabras importantes en el idioma local. La lista no cambia y tiene palabras como baño, comida, agua, etc.
In Syria, he was pleasantly surprised to see that many people drank a tea that's typical in Argentina, called mate.
No necesitábamos hablar el mismo idioma. Solo con mirarnos a los ojos, sabíamos si era tiempo de poner más yerba mate o si el agua estaba demasiado caliente.
In Iran, he met intellectuals, writers, theater directors, and magazine editors.
Una noche me invitaron a una reunión y fue una revelación. Las chicas se quitaron el hijab obligatorio que cubría su cabello.
A hijab is a veil or headscarf, often worn by Muslim women in public.
Una de las mujeres tenía una botella de alcohol en su mochila que compró en la farmacia. Sirvió un poco en un vaso con bebida de cola. Como vender bebidas alcohólicas estaba prohibido, ellos bebían etanol puro.
Yes, they drank pure ethanol. That was the only alcohol they could access. It was a hot day in 2006 when Juan Pablo finally reached Afghanistan. The country was at war. The U.S. invasion removed the Taliban from power, but they had reorganized and launched an insurgency. It was a violent year.
Me sentía optimista por poder llegar a Afganistán y por la hospitalidad que recibí de la gente. Pero el mismo día que llegué, explotó una bomba en Kabul y mató a casi 50 personas. Miraba la noticia en una televisión en blanco y negro mientras esperaba para entrar al país.
As Juan Pablo passed through customs, many families were leaving, desperate to escape the violence in their country. The border police told Juan Pablo he was headed into very dangerous territory.
Sentí que no estaba listo para lo que me esperaba, que todo lo que leí sobre el país, los mapas que estudié, no me servían de mucho. Sentía que ahora, realmente, entraba un mundo que no conocía.
It was getting dark when Juan Pablo started walking along the road that would take him to Herat, and from there to Kabul. The landscape was barren.
Casi no pasaban vehículos y empecé a tener miedo. Pero de pronto, un viejo automóvil se paró. El conductor se llamaba Karim. Tenía unos 40 años y vestía una túnica blanca. Vivía en un pueblo lleno de pequeñas casas de adobe, sin ventanas y del mismo color que el desierto.
Juan Pablo spent the night in Karim's house, where he lived with his 2 young daughters and father, a man with a very long and white beard. In his limited Farsi, Juan Pablo told them of his plans to hitchhike along the central route to Kabul.
Me dijeron que era muy peligroso. Luego vinieron los vecinos de Karim y jugamos a las cartas. Para la cena, comimos arroz, lentejas, ensalada de tomates y pan afgano.
It all went well until everyone went to bed.
Me dieron algo para dormir en el suelo de la sala. Por primera vez, empecé a tener miedo de la situación. Pensé en la guerra y al final decidí dormir con un cuchillo bajo la almohada.
Juan Pablo's mind was racing as he laid with his hand wrapped tightly around the pocket knife below his pillow. What if they decide to kidnap me? What if they sell me to the Taliban?
A la mañana siguiente, el padre de Karim, con su túnica y su carácter tranquilo, vino con el desayuno. Me sentí mal por dudar de ellos.
After having tea and bread for breakfast, Juan Pablo expressed his gratitude and said goodbye.
La misma cosa pasó muchas veces durante el viaje. Al principio, yo dudé de sus intenciones, pero al final, la gente siempre resultó ser buena conmigo.
11 months into his trip, Juan Pablo made it to Herat, one of the few cities in Afghanistan considered safe at the time.
Este fue el primer lugar en el que vi mujeres en público.
Juan Pablo saw the women arrive in carts pulled by horses. They got off to buy groceries for their households.
Todas las mujeres vestían el mismo burka azul, que les cubría desde la cabeza hasta los pies.
Unlike the hijab, the burqa covers the entire face and body. Around the eyes, there are holes just large enough to allow the women to see.
Las mujeres caminaban como fantasmas por el bazar.
At the time, the road that connects Herat with Kabul was one of the most dangerous in the country. More than 800 kilometers, with almost no security forces. Juan Pablo's plan was to hitchhike it.
El recepcionista de mi hostal en Herat se llamaba Hamid. Era un estudiante de química y hablaba buen inglés. Él me explicó: yo soy afgano y no voy allí. Hay muchos bandidos y talibanes.
The morning he was leaving, a group of Afghan military officers tried to convince him to turn around. This time, his resolve to continue faltered.
Fue el momento más difícil de toda mi vida. Me senté en el suelo y pensé en todo lo que hice para llegar a este lugar. Dejé la universidad. Me fui a Irlanda con solo 10 euros. Tuve que trabajar muchísimo para ahorrar el dinero para este viaje. También estudié todo lo que pude sobre los lugares que iba a conocer.
Juan Pablo had invested too much to give up now.
Decidí continuar. Me puse de pie, agarré la mochila y volví a mirar al horizonte, hacia Kabul.
Juan Pablo continued his journey along the main road. He was mostly picked up by old trucks, which moved along very slowly.
A veces, yo caminaba junto a gente con camellos.
Camellos are camels. Juan Pablo wasn't able to communicate with those men because they spoke Pashtun, and he didn't have a handy list of those words.
Pero viajar con esos camellos me hizo sentir tranquilo. Y también más fuerte. El viaje era tan antiguo como la humanidad.
During those weeks he spent hitchhiking to Kabul, Juan Pablo faced challenges that he hadn't anticipated.
En países con mucho tráfico, lo más difícil es ganarse la confianza de los conductores haciendo contacto visual con ellos. En Afganistán, el problema era que no había tráfico.
Most cars would pick him up, but sometimes he had to wait up to 10 hours for a car to even pass by.
Tuve que tener mucha paciencia.
Along the route, he met members of a nonprofit who were building a school. He also met teachers who held their classes in buildings without roofs.
Muchas veces, los talibanes atacaban las escuelas, pero los maestros seguían enseñando. Gracias a ellos, entendí que la gente local tenía miedo a los talibanes.
When he got to Chagcharan, Juan Pablo was halfway to Kabul. As he approached the town, he heard a helicopter overhead and saw a military convoy. He had arrived at a NATO base, a stark reminder that all this time he had been walking through a war zone.
Vi tanques de guerra y vehículos con mucha protección. Eso me hizo recordar que mi vida estaba en peligro cada kilómetro que viajaba.
A few U.S. soldiers invited Juan Pablo to visit the base. They drank beers together, and Juan Pablo told them about the people he had met along the road.
Los soldados, que no tenían casi contacto con la gente local, me preguntaban a mí cómo eran los afganos. Escucharon sorprendidos mis historias sobre los maestros, los constructores y los nómadas. Parecía que ellos no estaban en el mismo país que yo.
Juan Pablo continued his course. As he crossed through small villages, children would run up to him, curious about this foreigner who wasn't in military clothing. But not everyone was kind.
En un pueblo, a la gente no le gustó mucho mi presencia. Tenían miedo de mí y pensaban que yo era un espía.
They thought he was a spy. Juan Pablo went on to Bamiyan, a city known for having the largest Buddha statues in the world, before they were destroyed in 2001 by the Taliban. There, Juan Pablo was offered a ride by the Afghan army.
El comandante me preguntó si estaba loco. Me dijo que los talibanes habían atacado los pueblos en esa ruta la semana anterior. Atacaron a un grupo de soldados afganos y todos murieron. Él me dijo, puedes venir con nosotros a Kabul, pero tienes que saber que somos el objetivo.
We are the target, they told him. Juan Pablo accepted the ride anyway. Inside the military jeep, the atmosphere was extremely tense. The soldiers had their machine guns out and ready to shoot as they scanned nearby mountains and rooftops for snipers.
Yo estaba muerto de miedo. Pensé en los maestros. Esos héroes desconocidos nunca aparecían en las noticias, pero sentían este miedo todos los días. Esa imagen me ayudó a ser fuerte.
3 weeks later, Juan Pablo finally arrived to Kabul safely. The Afghan capital was slowly recovering from the worst moments of the war. He got in touch with an Argentine couple, Fabián and Betty, who were living there with their children.
Fabián y Betty eran enfermeros y trabajaban para una organización religiosa. Su misión de ayudar a los afganos les permitía vivir en este tipo de lugares donde los ataques y las bombas eran frecuentes.
This couple was willing to face the same dangers Juan Pablo had faced, except they did that every day, all in order to help others and prove their faith in humanity. All of a sudden, Juan Pablo felt like his trip paled in comparison.
Las personas como ellos son las que cambian el mundo. Yo simplemente estaba allí para poder contar la historia.
The end of Juan Pablo's trip to Afghanistan marked the beginning of his nomadic life. Now he writes about his travels for a living. Juan Pablo often thinks back to that man he met on the beach when all of this was just a dream.
Recuerdo sus palabras. Es tan sencillo como que puedes hacerlo. Fue así como pude vivir mi sueño y comprobar que la bondad y la hospitalidad son universales.
Juan Pablo Villarino is a professional hitchhiker and author. In the more than a year that it took him to make his way back to Argentina from Afghanistan, he wrote the first edition of his book, Vagabundeando en el Eje del Mal, or Hitchhiking in the Axis of Evil. It's about his travels through Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan. The book is now in its 5th edition. If you like this story, we'd love for you to share it with others. At podcast.duolingo.com, you can find a transcript of this story and all of the other episodes. Subscribe at Apple Podcasts or your favorite listening app so you never miss one. With over 300 million users, Duolingo is the world's leading language learning platform and the most downloaded education app in the world. Duolingo believes in making education free, fun, and accessible to everyone. To join, download the app today or find out more at duolingo.com. I'm the executive producer, Martina Castro. Gracias por escuchar.